Okay, hi guys, it's Rick from Tackle Village. Here we are tying the pheasant tail nymph, a popular and fairly simple nymph pattern. So first step is I've taken a hook, in this case TMC 3761 wet fly hook, which is a bit longer in the shank and a bit heavier than a standard hook. I've put a bead on that and laid down a thread base. Now first step with this fly is to tie in 4 fibres from the pheasant tail to make the tail initially. I'm just going to tie that in now at the bend of the hook. That looks like about the right length for the tail, slightly shorter than the shank of the hook in this case because it's a longer shanked hook. So we've tied in the tail. Next step is to tie in a length of copper wire to rib the body. I'll just tie in that copper wire right there. Now, next step is to bring the hook forward to about 2/3 of the way up the shank. So I'll leave it about there, just leaving enough room for the thorax on this fly. So to create the body, we wind these pheasant tail fibres forward, one after the other. I release them when I come back for the next, to lay down the next wind. Otherwise you find that they do twist, and I don't like the effect that you get when they twist. So I'm just releasing them, winding them forward to the point where we get to our thread. Now for this last wind, can maybe even do a double here, just because this body, it doesn't really matter. In fact, it probably helps us a little if it's getting thicker as we sort of approach the thorax. So there I've just done 2 turns around that, 3 turns to anchor it, a couple of turns in front, and we will trim off the excess pheasant tail feathers. Right, they're gone. Next step is to rib the fly with the wire. Now I like to go the opposite way to which we went with the fibres themselves. So I'm just winding that up to make that segmented body, winding it up to the point where we've got our thread. And again, just whip around that wire, a couple of turns, whoops, a couple of turns, turn in front, and we can trim off the surplus wire just using the bottom bit of the scissor blade so we're not wrecking our scissors for future use. Okay, so now we are tying in our materials for the thorax of the fly. So I've got a couple of peacock curl feathers here, maybe 3 I'll use this time. Yeah, I'll use 3. Right, I'll just cut the bits off the end there and tie these in. Okay, so we tie these in with the excess or the tips facing forward. Tie those in. Bring the thread back to the point where we tied them in. Next step is to tie in 2. I'm going to make the flashback variant of this fly this time, so I'm going to tie in 2 pieces of green tinsel, which will come over the top of the peacock curl thorax to make a flashback body, just to give a little bit more colour and bling to this fly. Oh, I've only tied in 1 there. I'll tie in the second one now. Proving a little tricky. Okay, that's got that tied in, I believe. Have we? Yes, we do. Here's our tinsel, and in my right hand is the peacock curl. So now what we'll do is we'll run the thread up to the base of the bead head, and we'll wrap our peacock curl. Oops, we've lost one there. Bear with me. Get this bobbin out of the way. Okay, now we're going to wrap forward our peacock curl to make the thorax. 1, 2, 3, 4 wraps. 4 wraps. Okay, now what we'll do, that's build our thorax. We'll tie that off just with 1 or 2 wraps, don't need any more there, and we'll trim off the ends. Okay, now we've got the fly almost finished. Last step here is to bring the tinsel across, holding it reasonably taut against the bead head, and then 1, 2, just a third for good measure, 3 wraps over the top, and that's given us our flash back on this fly. I will trim these pieces of tinsel off close to the bead, and now last step here is whip finish, and we are done. My whip finish tool, 1, 2, 3, behind the bead, pull up the thread, trim off the thread, and there we have it, our pheasant tail flashback nymph. Simple, quick tie, very effective fly, particularly for fishing runs in rivers, very effective for trout. Thanks very much. It's Rick again from Tackle Village, tying the pheasant tail nymph.